It's a bit of a different video today. I'm interviewing Robyn. She works at Man-Made in Joburg, and she's a very talented person. Her channel is very educational, very positive, and you can learn a lot. So I do encourage you to go and check out her channel. I'll link that in the description. But the reason I bring her here is because I've got a couple of questions for her, and the aim is to post the massive, almost, I want to call it blender push, but there's a lot of new people in the 3D industry right now, and a lot of people are curious about what is 3D, what is animation, what does it look like in the real world, what does it look like in terms of career and business. And I think Robyn is a good person to answer some of those questions for you. So if that is something that you're interested in right now, take 10 minutes and just listen to what she has to say with regards to the industry.
Hi. So I studied animation and new media at Varsity. I studied for 3 years, and during that time I also started doing little freelance jobs online, little animation things and 3D modeling and stuff like that. And then when I left Varsity, it was actually really difficult to get a job anywhere in the industry. The industry was still quite young. It was 10 years ago, so there weren't that many animation houses. So I struggled for a bit, and I had huge student loans to pay off. So I took a job temping as a receptionist in the meantime while I still looked for animation work. And then in the evenings and on the weekends, I carried on with the freelance stuff that I was doing online. So after a while, I'd built up my portfolio, I'd built up my experience, and I managed to land some contracts here in Johannesburg for animation and general 3D work and motion graphics. And then after a while, I managed to get a full-time position at a media company. I started as a junior animator, and then I became a senior animator and a lead animator, and then an animation director. And I basically just worked my way up until now I'm a Co-HOD of the animation department.
So Robyn, question one, as an animator, you have an amazing track record. You've gone from Co-HOD to Vice HOD, technical director in animation, senior animator, and what would you say was the primary asset that you have that caused you to grow from a 3D generalist to where you are now?
I think my primary asset is that I'm a highly driven person. I'm very motivated naturally, so I don't really require other people to motivate me. I'm going to do that for myself. I think part of that is probably ego, because I also want people to know that if I'm working on something, it's going to be really good. You know, I don't want people to think that I've ever put out crap. So my work is always going to be good, and that's what motivates me. I'm also really good at managing people and managing resources. It just comes naturally to me, and I'm not complacent. I'm not lazy. I'm always pushing to improve myself, and I think that's very obvious, like, you know, to people who managed me or my employers and stuff like that. They can always see when somebody is passionate about getting better at what they do in their career just for themselves, which is a big thing for me. I asked for more responsibilities. I asked for more duties and more things to do, and I tried to be helpful wherever I can, because you're a team, you know, you want to make things easy for the team. And I think that's very important in leadership positions, to be looking out for the team, not just for yourself.
Considering your growth from a generalist to a Co-HOD, technical director, VFX supervisor, what would you say to a 3D generalist?
Well, I would say try not to box yourself in with your career choices and the companies you go work at. So if you want growth opportunities available to you, don't go work at a company where you can see straight away that that's not going to be a possibility for you. Or when you go in, plan to only work there for, say, a year, so you can learn a bunch of new stuff, but you know that when you need to move up, then you're going to need to move to another company where that is possible, if the company you're looking at now doesn't have that sort of growth opportunity for you. And also, don't just pick a job where you can see that, you know, the requirements of you are not going to be very demanding. It's something that you're going to find super easy to do. Don't pick a job like that, because you're not going to get pushed, you're not going to grow, you're not going to learn anything new. So how are you going to advance if you're working there for, say, a year or 2 years? You're going to be stuck in the same position as you were a year ago if you know going into this job that there's nothing for you to learn there. It's really not it's not the best choice. I mean, obviously money is money. If you can't find a job somewhere else, you need to take a job. But if you're thinking in terms of your career trajectory, you do need to think about things like that. So unfortunately, say if you go work at a place and you're a 3D generalist, but all they require from you is that you model 3D props, and that is all you do and all you're ever going to do there, then you need to know that you're going to have to move on fairly soon, because there's not any room for growth in that place. Being in a place where you're going to be able to progress and learn, even if you're not necessarily going to get a promotion, but if you know that the work you're doing there is going to be challenging for you and is actually going to help you grow as a person and as an employee, so that the next place you go to, you can get a higher salary and a better position. That's really important when you're looking at jobs and thinking of your career.
Do you think that the Blender 2.8 release is a threat to 3D generalists in terms of market saturation?
No, I don't think so. I think Blender is great. Any version of Blender is pretty great. 2.8 obviously is awesome because of Eevee. I don't think we need to worry about market saturation, because the animation industry, to be honest, needed a bit of a boost. And I think it's really awesome that a lot of people who previously wouldn't actually have been able to get into it in any way because of the ridiculous price of software, now have access to a really great 3D software that they wouldn't have been able to before. So I don't think the market's going to become oversaturated necessarily. I think it will need to adapt, but markets evolve. So I don't think we need to worry about that really.
I actually have an interesting, well, not an interesting, but maybe a different view here. You spoke about the market and the industry, which was the question that I asked. But there's another side here, and I think to a large extent that deals with internet business. And a lot of the internet, well, I say internet business, internet sales, a lot of that way of making money deals with passive income. And I think if we talk about market saturation, I think while the industry will adjust, I think where we might see saturation is in the passive income area in terms of internet business. People are surprised that I pay rent and my daughter's schooling by selling 3D models online and B-roll that I've shot with my cell phone and throw on black box. But there's a lot of big names like Jevin Dovey and other people that successfully, that's a business for them. And I think with the 2.8 release of Blender and Eevee, rendering doesn't take time anymore, and it's also a very good package to just create 3D models, and people that can do that well could do well. But there is a danger of all of a sudden there's a couple of million extra people on the market with the same idea. And what you have, Robyn, is a bit of a funnel. When you employ someone, you can interview 10 people and you use skill as a funnel. So you'll take your 10 people and funnel it down and employ 2 of them, where in terms of passive income online doesn't necessarily have that funnel. So you'll have 20,000 people that has this idea today, and then they'll start doing it tomorrow, because no one is there to almost put in a quality gate. Or maybe there is a funnel, and that funnel will be timed, because people will realize over a year that this thing it's not a quick buck. There's a lot of work that needs to happen for that to work. I've been doing it for 6 years. That's why it works for me. But I think in that area we'll see the hockey stick, which is a sharp increase and then a vertical down. That's just my opinion. I could be very wrong. Here's one that I've actually been wondering about personally, is that would you say that it's important for 3D generalists to start specializing in a specific area at some point?
Well, I haven't specialized and I'm doing great. I really love where I am now. I love the possibilities for my career and my future, because I have a lot, open to me. I'm not really limited to any one thing. But I will be honest with you, there was a time earlier on in my career where I wished that I had specialized, and I thought very seriously about it. I wanted to maybe just go into like 3D character modeling or just character animation. So I did consider it, because I wanted to work at like a place like Triggerfish or something like that. That is what I wanted at one stage in my life, but now I'm really glad that I didn't. I really enjoy the fact that I have a lot of possibilities open to me. I do a lot of different things like on a day-to-day basis, which keeps things from getting boring, because I do get bored quite easily if I'm doing the same thing over and over again every day. So it definitely suits me personally to be a generalist, because I can work on, a commercial 1 week where we're compositing 3D stuff into live action footage with VFX, and then the next week I could be working on a motion graphics thing, and then the next week I could be working on modeling some characters. It's very varied and it suits me really well. It definitely depends on who you are as a person, what your personal preferences are, and where you want to end up in your career. If your main aim is to work at Triggerfish as a character animator, and you know for sure that that's what you want to do, then you do need to specialize in character animation. Or if you want to go and work at Pixar as a texture artist or something, you do need to specialize. I will say, however, that in South Africa, it's a lot easier to find work if you are a generalist. And I know that from my personal experience and from the experience of friends and colleagues who have been both generalists and specialists. It's a lot easier to find work if you're a generalist, because you can do a bit of everything. And that's what most media houses and places here require. It is changing a bit now, but right now, it's easier to find work as a generalist.
For a young animator or 3D artist looking at various industries right now, what are the employment opportunities that they can look into?
Well, there's architecture and engineering. You would hire a 3D artist to create 3D renderings of spaces and buildings and interiors, interior design. They use 3D for those. It's a big thing in retail and marketing. They'll use 3D animation and 3D renderings to showcase products. For real estate, they'll use 3D mock-ups of the buildings and stuff before they're actually made. You can also do medical or scientific visualizations. So for research or analytical purposes, or also for practical purposes, where you could, for instance, have, say, a 3D model of a body and all its various organs, and you can actually use that for practice for new doctors if they want to practice operating. I've actually seen that with VR. It's quite a cool thing. And you can also use it for diagnostic purposes. The medical field actually uses it a lot already. Manufacturing, mechanical designs, it saves a lot of money if you can create something in 3D first and troubleshoot any issues you're going to come into and the design of it before you actually go ahead and make it. Obviously in education, it's useful to back up the curriculum with animated content or 3D stuff for practical purposes. They could have an interactive thing that the kids could do that help them learn, and they've done that before. They are doing it, they're using it. So it's getting used a lot in many industries. Pretty much every industry, I would say now, uses 3D or animation in some way.
With the incredible push in Unreal 5's ability to process dense 3D geometry, do you think that low poly 3D will be a thing of the past? And if so, when?
I do think in terms of necessity, obviously it is going to become a thing of the past. We're not going to have to worry so much about processing power and what it can handle. But in terms of style, no, I don't think it's ever going to go away, because people love low poly. I mean, it looks awesome, it's cute, it's very nostalgic. So I don't think it's going to be done away with completely, but it's not going to be something that we have to worry about. It's not going to be a requirement when you're making a game to worry about how low poly it is and how few triangles you have. Obviously, the hardware also needs to catch up, because people's consoles and PCs need to be able to handle that really high poly stuff, but it's definitely going to happen. There are also other ways around the worries about high poly counts. Obviously, like with point cloud rendering, I don't know if you saw Dreams for PS4, but they were using distance fields to render the point clouds. So you can still have an incredibly high level of detail without having to sacrifice poly. So there's a lot of things available to us to get around having to worry about that sort of thing in gaming now. Obviously now, everyone's not gaming on these amazing consoles that have great processors or PCs that are, beasts, and people are also using phones. So we still have to worry about it with that if people are gaming on apps on their phones, or if they're using browser-based stuff like, for instance, Spark AR. You still need to worry about the poly count, you need to worry about the size of the file. We create filters for Spark AR, and it's still very much a concern. Like, it's quite limiting at the moment Obviously, phones are going to get better, hardware is going to get better, and those processes are going to get better in time as well. But we do still need to worry about that. And another concern is obviously still browser-based stuff. So we do VR experiences in browsers, and when we export a GLB, we need to still worry about the size of those because people's internet speeds are different and their computers are different. So you have to worry about that sort of thing too with your audience and what they have. So it's still a matter of time, especially now in South Africa. Here, it's still a concern because not everyone has great internet if they're using something browser-based. So you do still need to worry about poly counts and the size of the files with that. But for the most part, in a few years' time, once, everyone's got 5G and everyone's got amazing phones and stuff that have caught up, then it's not going to be such a concern anymore.
That's an interesting answer, Robyn. I think I just always think about the technical side of things, and obviously thinking about the low poly and the technical requirements, but it's very true. It's very much a style. As a Co-HOD, what are you looking for in a new or young person joining your team, both in character as well as in skill?
I look for somebody who's gone above and beyond the minimum requirements in their showreel or their portfolio. So if somebody comes to me fresh out of college and all they have on their showreel is college projects, that kind of tells me that they are the kind of person to just do what people have told them to do and not go any further. So that shows a lack of initiative. It shows a lack of passion for your career because you're not really trying to put anything extra into it. You're just doing the bare minimum. So to me, that's a bad sign. So somebody who I can see has passion for it, they've worked on their own little projects, they do it as a hobby as well. That seems to me like somebody who's serious about their career, it's serious about improving it, somebody who really cares about what they're doing and what I'm going to hire them to do. And that's important in a team member. You need somebody who's going to care about what you're doing and somebody who cares about improving and putting effort into it. Otherwise, that person's just going to become stagnant in your team and it's going to bring the whole rest of the team down. I also look for somebody who would be willing to take responsibility, somebody who's not just going to, blame other people for problems. It's actually happened where we'll be interviewing somebody and we'll say, for instance, oh, did you learn After Effects? Or how good are you at After Effects? And they say, oh, we did it for like 3 weeks at varsity and they told us that it's an industry standard and we need it, but then they didn't teach us anymore. So I don't really know not much about it. And to me, that's just kind of like, well, why didn't you just carry on teaching yourself then? If they gave you the groundwork, then why didn't you carry on with that? If you know it's an industry standard, learn it yourself. Don't expect people to spoon feed you stuff. That's not a good indicator for me as somebody who's going to hire you, because that means I'm going to have to baby you. So definitely somebody who has initiative, who's going to take responsibility, and who's going to do stuff for themselves. You need somebody with a can-do attitude, a problem solver, because a lot of what we do is problem solving. And, the person who's hiring you is not going to be able to sit next to you and hold your hand all the time. So you need to be able to show that you are a problem solver and you can do stuff for yourself. It's very important in this industry. Skill-wise, they need to know at least one 3D program really well. At the moment, we use Blender, but we've also used 3D Max, and I used to use Maya. So it's good for you to know one 3D package, because then if we need you to change to another one, we know that you can, if you know one really well, because it gets a lot easier if you switch between packages. It's different if you're coming completely new into one, then it's very overwhelming and you're not going to be much use for a good few months, probably. They also need to know After Effects, industry standard. Again, I'll say it, especially because we do a lot of motion graphics and After Effects is good for a lot of different things. So they definitely need to know that. They need to know how to do good motion graphics, good character animation. I mean, your work doesn't need to be astounding. If you're a student, if we're hiring you as a junior, it doesn't need to be groundbreaking stuff, but you need to show that you have the potential, and you absolutely have to know the 12 principles of animation. Like, don't walk into a studio and want to be hired as an animator if you don't know what they are, because it's not going to happen. They also need to know rudimentary knowledge of Photoshop and Illustrator.
When it comes to employing someone, the question I'll ask you, Robyn, has to do with skill as well as character. And I say skill as well as character because skill assumes that you you know the 3D software that you need to be able to operate. You meet the requirements, you submitted your animation portfolio, and all of that checks out. But there is an area in terms of character where I would want someone to have a teachable character. I think that's probably my number one on the list, because if someone is teachable, you can take that person very far. And I'm not talking about teachable in skill, I'm talking about teachable in attitude. Is it important for people to be right all the time, or is it important for the team to go forward? That's probably my number one. It's something that I feel very, very passionate about. As someone who lived both freelancing as well as full-time employment, what inspired you to move out of freelance, and how does this impact new 3D artists? Any advice or learnings that you can share?
I left freelancing because I really wanted job security. I wanted a regular paycheck. I wanted to know what I was going to get paid every month. I wanted UIF and medical aid and all those great things that come with a full-time job. So it really suits me. I also have quite bad social anxiety and I'm quite an introvert. So going to new places for a couple weeks and meeting those people and then having to move on to a bunch of new people in a new place, I found it really uncomfortable and stressful. So working at one place full-time really suits me and I love it. A lot of people will prefer freelancing if you don't like routine, if you like things to be mixed up a little. I mean, you can really make bank if you charge per hour or per day and you're working on long projects, but you do need to be careful of the tax situation because they tax freelancers like crazy if you're not registered as a business. So that is something that you need to be careful of as a freelancer. So a little tip, if you are freelancing, increase your rate slightly to kind of counter the taxes that you're going to get. I really like the routine of working full-time at a place, but you know, some people who freelance, they like things to be different. They like that excitement and meeting new people. For a lot of freelancers, they choose freelancing because they think they can work from home all the time, but a lot of the time companies like you to come in, especially if the stuff is, you know, high turnaround and there's a really tight deadline. You're going to have to go into the office anyway. Now it's really awesome because I'm getting the full-time paycheck and that, you know, that steadiness, but I get to work from home. So it's kind of like best of both worlds for me right now. But it depends. It depends on what you like and what your personal preferences are and what your personality is like. Freelancing can be difficult as well because you kind of have to chase after companies sometimes to get paid. They often have a bunch of excuses like their client hasn't paid them yet or whatever. So for me, that was really difficult when I was freelancing. Because, you know, you kind of left wondering like, well, what am I going to do this month now? Because I was counting on getting paid by this company and now they've screwed me over. So you do also need to have, you know, contracts in place. That's another tip. Make sure that you have contracts and they are signed, and try and get a deposit as well before you start working for a company. I would suggest if you like fresh out of college, if you're looking for experience and stuff, then start freelancing. If you can't get a full-time job, that's what I did and it worked really well for me. You can build up your portfolio, you can get that XP for working, and then eventually it'll help you to get a full-time job and you'll have all that experience, you know, meeting deadlines and interpreting what clients want and stuff to help you at your job. So if you can't get a job right now, start freelancing. It's the best option for you to do.
In 2020, the economy is radically changing, and there's a good argument to be made in favor of opportunities for self-starters and entrepreneurs. Do you think that now is a good time to get into a digital skill?
Absolutely. Digital skills are the future. Everybody has to be online in some way, be digital in some way, because we are moving very rapidly into the digital realm. Everything is going online, everything is going digital. It's probably not great how much we depend on it, but it's a fact. So even if you don't like it, it's a fact. That is the world we live in right now. So digital skills are absolutely a must for anyone thinking about their future right now. Like 100%.
Robyn, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And please go check out Robyn's channel if you want to learn step-by-step animation, tactics, skills, steps, staying motivated as an artist. Go and check it out. It's very good information, very helpful, and very well presented.